Hello everybody, well welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing an update for the tropical Atlantic for the next week to 10 days, and I'm going to be looking at the GFS, the ECM, and like other sorts of things like relative humidity and like wind shear, and like to see if there's any opportunity or like if there's any signs or precursors of potential development. Also, we'll have to watch out for the MGO, which I'll talk about at the end of the video, because like the MGO is called as obviously means the mountain Julian oscillation, or like in easier terms, if you don't like really know what that means, MGO is basically where there's convection, where if the MGO isn't in place, it's harder for convection, for rising motion to form. It's harder to create like tropical cyclones. But when there's when the MGO is in place, it allows more lift. It allows like more rise of motion. Basically it's more favorable for development, basically. So if you see the MGO in the Atlantic phase, when it crosses the Atlantic, like a couple of days after it crosses the Atlantic, that's when it becomes favorable. And I'm not going to get too technical with it, because the MGO and like the Kelvin wave and all that, there is like theories like a few days after it makes it more favorable. It tones down the wind shear slightly, tones down the dry air. But like I don't want to go too much into that, because it's quite quite technical, and I don't have enough time to really talk about that, unless you want us to do a video devoted on what a Kelvin wave is, or like about tropical or like African monsoons, or the MGO. Like if everyone's going more in depth of what they mean, then just tell us in the comments, and I could do a video based on the MGO or based on a Kelvin wave, and kind of go through the nitty and gritty, like what it basically means. Obviously I don't have the time for it, but basically if the MGO is in the Atlantic, it's more favorable for development, basically. So looking at the GFS, it's obviously upgraded. Like GFS just got upgraded recently, so that's nice to see. And I quite like the satellite imagery as well. So if there's like a hurricane a week out, you can look at the simulated satellite, and you can actually see like what it could look like, and it looks pretty realistic. Because on the old GFS, it just looked weird. It didn't look right. Obviously, the HWRF is pretty good at that. But the GFS has really done a good job. And it looks a lot more professional and a lot more realistic with it. So we're looking at the GFS. So obviously on the 25th of June towards the 26th and the 27th, just pretty quiet. Yes, there's obviously the African monsoon just coming off as normal, but it has been a bit suppressed recently because of the dry air. Obviously of the Saharan area just coming off in waves. It just keeps on coming through, and there's no break in the minute. So obviously there's been no development recently. I do think as we go into July, we'll get more favorable. I'm not saying it's like 2017, but there's a lot of analogs like 2017 for this year. And you have to remember with 2017, it didn't start off that active, but when it got towards the end of July going into August and into September, it just clicked. It just turned on instantly. And the sea surface temperature anomalies compared to 2017 is very similar. The MDR is very warm, the Gulf is like very warm, or I should say the tropical Atlantic or the MDR is starting to warm up pretty nicely. Equatorial Pacific's pretty similar. The sea surface temperature anomalies for the mid Atlantic and going towards Greenland's pretty similar. So it's going to be interesting to see. It started, obviously we've got Andrea obviously off the list now, but it might start off slow as it has done, but once we get into July, August, September, that's when it's going to click. I think it's going to click very soon, and once it clicks, you'll know about it. So it's good to get your hurricane kit ready now. Make sure your generator is working. Make sure you got your hurricane insurance on like certain things that are important. Make sure you've got insurance on it, because you don't want stuff to happen and then you lose your variables and you don't have insurance and then you've lost it. You know what I mean? Like that's the worst thing you want. You want to make sure you have everything ready and make sure you're prepared for the hurricane season. If you're not, then you should have been prepared absolute months ago. You should be, after the hurricane season has ended, you should make sure straight away everything's ready for next season. Like you should make sure of that. Anyway, so as we're going to the GFS, So we're gonna go towards Friday, then into the weekend. So the upcoming weekend, it just looks pretty quiet. There is something starting to develop in Eastern Pacific, but I'm not really looking at like Eastern Pacific today. But there is like some like development. It's really interesting to see what that could do. As we're going into the following week, into Tuesday, Wednesday, and then the Thursday, obviously the African monsoon trade is still in effect there. And obviously the high pressure is pretty intense. Obviously the wind shear is not going to be helping it, and obviously the Saharan area is going to be pumping off the African continent, so that's going to keep things suppressed. Then as we go on, nothing really much to speak about. Obviously, need some mistakes, things going on, but there is something here at the end of the run. Obviously, the end of the run, and obviously I don't know it's going to be vorticity, but it's definitely a healthy wave coming off Africa. And if I just quickly look at the simulated satellite here, you can see it does look pretty healthy. It's got a bit of roundness. It's very rounded, and like that's what you'll really like want to look for if you want to track hurricanes, or if you like tracking hurricanes. Obviously you don't want to hit land, but if you like tracking them and obviously you look at the signs for development, you want it to become more concentrated, more rounded. That's what you want to see. So yeah, nothing really to speak about, but I think the Atlantic's going to wake up at some point. It's definitely going to wake up at some point, because I think it looks like favorable, and the Bureau of Meteorology is saying in a minute ENSO's neutral. It's not even an El Nino anymore. It's a neutral phase. It's like not even in El Nino anyway, according to them. So it's looking pretty interesting. If we look at the relative humidity here, basically the more turquoise, the more green it is, the more moisture there is. And if you want a hurricane, you want loads of moisture around it, and that means it's very healthy and it's got loads of moisture to work with. And obviously the darker the brown is, the more dry air. So if there's a cyclone and it's got a lot of dry air in it, obviously that's not a good sign for development. Or if there's just dry air across the whole Atlantic, that's not a good sign for development either. But as we go on, the 2nd, 3rd, 4th of July, 5th of July, as I said, with the high pressure, it's very intense, so it's pumping off loads of African dust from Africa. And towards the end, it does become more favorable. And as I said, with that tropical wave, it is got tropical moisture around it as well, which is pretty interesting. So it's one of the things where we just have to keep an eye on it. And I think the Atlantic is bound to wake up at some point. We just have to wait and see. Obviously the wind shear here, we're going to do the wind shear. Anything above 15 and 20 is not that good for development, but anywhere between 0, maybe 12 to 15, like 15 is probably the highest I would go for it to be very, very, very favorable. So anything above like 15, it becomes less and less favorable. Obviously, as you get into the mid 20s and higher, it becomes not favorable for development. So as we go on into Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, so the weekend, just well, the Eastern Atlantic is not that high wind shear at this time, but obviously in the part of the Lesser Antilles going into the Western Caribbean, the wind shear is like towards 50, so won't be really development there. And as we go on, it's towards the beginning of July. And then at the end of the run, where that tropical wave is, interestingly, it does look pretty favorable between 5 and 15 knots. So that's quite favorable. There's a lot of relative humidities, so there's moisture. So that could develop. And if that develops and then it becomes a hurricane, when it gets towards here where there's a little bit more dry air, it could shut off the dry air like with its rain bands. So if that was to come off, just see, we could see an named storm coming from the MDR, and then it could develop, and then we'll go from there. But obviously, it's really far. It's the end of the run, so we can't really see anything. But you have to look out for these things, yeah, because when they start seeing them, sometimes they might keep showing them, and then that's when you become interested and you want to keep an eye on things. If we look at the HCM here, so I like the HCM for the track. I think the HCM is like one of the best like models for tracking anyway. If we go on towards the end of June here, so the weekend there is a bit of something going on up here, but it won't be tropical. It's too cold in that area, so it'll just be an area of low pressure. No vorticity I can really see in the MDR really at all, and obviously in Eastern Pacific there is, but there's nothing in the MDR. Then as we're going towards the end of the run, just looks pretty standard, pretty strong ridge of high pressure coming in towards the Caribbean. We're just gonna pump out a lot of dry air from Africa. If we're gonna look at the sea surface temperature anomalies on average here, yes, the eastern coast is below average, but if you look at the whole MDR as a whole, it's actually quite a bit above average. It's anywhere between 0.4 to about 1.2-ish degrees above average, so the MDR is warming up really nicely. And obviously if this is going to be like a 2017 season, you want to look around here, because that's where Irma formed and that, and like Maria, so we're gonna have to keep an eye on things. And I think we could see a long track hurricane potentially from the MDR this season. It's definitely favorable in my opinion. If you look at the actual temperature and anomalies here, so obviously eastern coast of Africa, yeah, it's obviously below average, so it's not favorable, but it's starting to warm up now. And then as we're going towards the lesser Antilles, it's between 20 and 29 degrees. And remember, for storms to develop, it has to be between 26 or higher. So definitely more favorable. And I can't find the data for how like the depth of it, but I'll look today. And like especially around here, there is more depth to these temperatures. Like it goes like further down. And if you and I compared it to 2017, and it's like compared to to 2017, this year there's more depth to it, so it's got more ocean heat content, as you would say. So basically it's more favorable, but obviously nothing's a guarantee. And obviously some meteorologists are saying it'll be a weak El Nino, so obviously it's gonna be less storms this season, but you just can't say that at all, especially when El Nino's on a massive weakening trend. You just can't say it could be below average when I think it could be in between average and above average. I can't say being below average. Could be wrong, but in my forecast I said it's more likely to be slightly above average, which I think is going to be the case personally, but it could change. But yeah guys, so that's it for today's video. I hope you found it informative. Please like, subscribe, and turn on the notifications so you don't miss another upload in the future. And yeah, so I just thought I would give an update on the tropical Atlantic. I'll be doing an update in the next day or two in the Eastern Pacific, because we could see maybe a named storm in the Eastern Pacific, and it could become like very interesting. And I think the Atlantic's bound to liven up soon, and I think it could be in towards mid-July. That's when we're gonna say it's starting to get a lot more interesting. Okay, so I found you. I hope you found the video informative. Please like, subscribe, and I will see you all hopefully maybe tomorrow or the next day.